Well,
All
now
right,
we're
we're
live.
live. We are. Number 4, parenting beyond COVID. And hi, Max.
Hi,
Thank you for
Brendon.
coming on, doing this with me.
Thank you so much for
We
inviting me.
we were just talking about this before we went live, and we were like, "What are we going to talk about?" Because it's funny for me. It's like I've already done 3 of them, and I'm like, but what I'd like to look at today is from a totally different dad point of view, like with, I guess, how's it been for you, the whole COVID? And, I know you haven't seen your kids that much, and
Yeah, it's been interesting. I mean, ever since I chose to separate from the kid's mother, which was now around 8 or 9 years ago, it's been interesting. So COVID was just sort of like another another part of interesting parenting, basically. And because I've done things very differently too, like because I've been traveling a lot and now living overseas, so seeing the kids was always like a real creation. It was never something that it could just be automatically, I'm the parent and this is how it looks now. Like, when you live with your kids and they go to the school down the street and that sort of stuff. So this just had to be a different creation. And I didn't see the kids for 6 months, which was difficult. And it was okay. Like, I could see that they were happy creating and living their lives. So that was really awesome. I was really grateful for that. Their mother is actually quite good at providing what they require and, having that sort of stable base. So I'm very lucky in that regard. So yeah, I went to Australia for 2 weeks for quarantine and then had them for 3 weeks there. So it was actually quite easy and great.
Nice. So, I mean, I remember for me, when I started my relationship with Simone, and she said to me one day, she went, "Do you get that you're different as a dad?" And I went, "What? What are you talking about? How am I different?" And she was like, "You ask him questions, you empower him, you are trying to teach him about choice." And I was like, "Wouldn't that be normal?" But it's the same thing that I see with you. Is it's like this, like, for so many dads out there, like it's an interesting thing when you to acknowledge how different you are.
Yep. And I would not even claim to have acknowledged it. Like when you mentioned it, then I was like, yeah, wow, it's true.
Yeah, you are different with it.
Yeah,
you are different with it. But I think it's that thing of acknowledgement. Like, because most of the humanoid men out there that I've seen don't actually acknowledge themselves for the difference that they are, especially with fathering. I mean, you get thrown into this thing. Well, you don't get thrown into it, you choose it, but then you go, how do I do this?
Well, we basically get thrown into it. Most of us haven't had really a great father role model or even had much time with our fathers, and other male role models in that sense, like there's so few. And I think you'd agree with this too. Like Gary was probably one of the first people that I saw where I was like, wow, he's really different with his point of view about parenting and kids and all that sort of stuff. And he's a huge inspiration for me to really allow the kids to choose what they want to choose and always aspire to be interesting point of view. I know I'm not always interesting point of view, but I know that that's just then a choice. Even if I notice myself react, then I have a choice. I can be interesting point of view after that. And he's been a super inspiration for that, in the way that I see him be with his kids and what 2 of them have grown into, the ones that have chosen to, receive the difference that he is.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, wow, I want more of that in the world. So like, what can I be, basically?
Me too. Yeah. And it's like, I mean, how do we get so lucky to have someone like him to look up to too? Because like you said, with like I mean, that question of who am I being with parenting is such a powerful one, because it's like, I know for me that there's been many times over the years when I was parenting and I would hear things come out of my mouth where I was like my dad. And it was like, he was not much of a fun role model to be looking at how to be a father. but it's like, but I wonder how much of that we do, we just do it on autopilot. We just go, well, this is how you parent. So let's do this. So all the autopilot systems you're using to create the role model of parenting based on what you learned as what a parent is, were you just trying to create it?
Totally. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'd love to add too, like everywhere, all of the familial expectations that you're fulfilling with the biomimetic mimicry of your parents. Can we just try and uncreate all of that too?
Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shorts, boys, millions. And that's that place where it comes from autopilot, where we just go into mimicking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rather than, okay, what choice do I have here? And it's like, I mean, one of the things that we were talking about before this was someone was asking a question about, having a kid right now, being a stepmom and having a kid right now, and he's not having an easy time. And one of the things that really helped me with that was recognizing that our kids are infinite beings and they actually have choice too. They choose us as parents. They usually choose us as parents because they're smarter than us and they know they can control us.
But I want to add too, it doesn't always mean that they're smarter than us. I think Gary pointed this out once too, because I had this point of view, the kids, they're more aware than me, they're more this than me. And, as a humanoid parent, I think we often do this because they're little and cute and innocent, quote unquote. And it's exactly like what you just said.
Quote unquote, yes.
Yeah, exactly. For the people that are listening to the audio. And exactly like you said, like they're making choices all of the time. And only because they're not cognitive choices, it doesn't mean they're not choosing. And I think for me, it's been really important to recognize that the kids are always choosing, not to always be like, they don't know, or they're just this, or no, they're always choosing. They're an infinite being just like you and I.
Yep.
And they're always making choices. They're always creating their lives. It's never like a passive or automatic thing.
Well, it also takes you out of it takes you out of the blame for, like, when you recognize that your kids have choice, totally. It takes you out of the blame for what they're choosing to create their lives as. And it's like, for me, I mean, to be honest, I've the last probably 12 months has been a little bit of a struggle for me as a parent to watch my son go from what he could choose to what he is choosing. It's been interesting to watch, but one of the things that I taught him was choice. And it's like, and this can be one of the probably the hardest part of being a parent is when you care so much about them also, but in order to teach them choice, you have to have allowance of what they choose.
And you have to care for you.
You have to care for you too, yeah. Because it's like, I mean, with my son Nash, it's like he was in boarding school for a couple of years and he wanted to get out of there, and I could see that his future was going to be a lot brighter if he stayed in the boarding school. So I offered him money and everything to stay in that school, and he just dug his heels in. And now he's doing his thing, and it's like one of the things it taught me was I was being a superior asshole where I was trying to get him to choose what I thought he should, not what he wanted. And I think that's like, I mean, I've seen you with your kids. I think that's what makes it different is when you're willing to actually let your kids have choice and go, okay, this isn't what I would choose, but it's not my life. It's yours.
And this is something that I've really been asking questions around recently, like the 5 elements of intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who haven't heard those before, it's honoring, vulnerability, honor, vulnerability, allowance, trust, and gratitude. And I've been asking a lot about honor, and that's been coming up in my life a lot. And what you're talking about, you're honoring him and his choice.
Yeah.
Which has been a difficult one with me because I'm a huge superior asshole. I have been in my life in so many ways, whether it's relationship or work relationships or kids, or, I always thought I knew better, but I didn't really acknowledge that. And as Gary pointed that out more and more, so I was like, holy shit, it's like fully true. Like I'm trying to help people. I'm trying to Like I basically think I know better. So with
You
the
know what
kids, it's
makes you
been,
different with that though?
what's
Very
that?
few people, would actually admit to that.
Yeah, it's true. And thank you for acknowledging that.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
so
like that.
with the kids, it's been a practice for me, and it constantly still is. Like when I think that they should choose something different, it's that thing of, cool, interesting point of view. I have this point of view, and let them choose and find out for themselves too,
Yeah.
and
Well,
create their lives.
yeah. And encouraging them to create their lives, like encouraging them to actually create their lives. And it's,
Hmm.
we've known each other for quite a while now, and I've watched both of us have to learn this dynamically to look from a different place of, okay, if I was going to create my reality, what would that be? And
Totally.
it's such a, it's being you is the easiest thing that you can choose, yet we make it the most difficult.
And that's the key. We make it the most difficult.
Yeah, we do.
It's not that it
Well,
is difficult. We make it difficult.
and yeah, and then we projected our kids that it's difficult rather than,
Uh-huh.
okay, if you were choosing your reality, what would you choose? And it's like,
Mm.
and what a lot of us do with that too is because we take it into this reality's point of view of, but if I do that, my kids are just going to turn into whatever they want to turn into, as if that's a bad thing.
Hmm.
But so one of the so let's try this. So one of the things that we were talking about in the 7-day event that we just did was myths.
Mm.
Which is, for me, what I did was I had the myth that once I had Nash, his mother would see that I loved him, that I loved her. That was the myth, that having a child creates this. But for a lot of us, what we do is
Mm.
we create our parenting based on the myths of it. If we have a kid, then the myth is that we're going to be the perfect parent, or the myth is that that everything that they choose is going to be my fault. So all the myths that you all have with parenting, all the myths that you've learned that keeps you creating the lies in order to parent, we destroy and create it.
Wow. Right and wrong, good and bad, pot and pock, all nine shots, boys and beyonds. Hmm. I'd love to ask you this question because this is something that's come up for me a lot, like over the time, because I'm the one who chose to separate the kid's mother from the kid's mother
Uh-huh.
at the time. And then also 2 years ago, move overseas. And I know you've moved overseas. And as a father, and there's this stereotype and archetype, I would say too, because what Brendon was saying about the 7-day, we've been talking a lot about myths and archetypes. And archetypes are these things that we basically, these identities that we take on, like I'm this or I'm that. I'm the father that is da da da. And basically, this archetype of like being the bad father or the wrong father because you moved away or because you, and there's so many stories and movies about how then the father sort of doesn't care anymore and he's like just left and abandoned them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to ask you the question of like, basically, if that's been something that's been either projected or come up for you, or
Big
and
time.
how you deal with that,
Big
like what
time.
sort of tools you
It's
use.
Well, when it comes up, I look at it and go, okay, so everywhere I'm trying to judge myself into this reality's point of view about what I choose, pock and pod, and destroy and uncreate it. And it's like, I mean, I was talking to a friend 2 days ago. It's like I woke up in the morning and I was thinking about Nash, and I was like, and I started choosing wrongness. And it's like, and the
Mm.
thing that we do with wrongness is we like it's so you you go into it thinking that if you go into the wrongness and you can figure out why you're making yourself wrong so that you can make yourself right, you'll get out of judgment. And it never works. It's a never-ending loop that we keep perpetuating on ourselves, thinking that if we make ourselves right, we'll no longer be wrong, or if we're wrong, then we have to try and be right. And
Mm.
what I do is I just catch myself and go, you know what? I have choice, he has choice, and it's like, and then I'll connect with him energetically, and you got to be willing to be kind to yourself, like you said before. It's having that kindness for you too.
Yeah.
For him, what I did was I looked at it and went, okay, do you want to have something different with this? And he said on many occasions, no. So it's like, okay, but I mean, one of the processes I ran for years was, what have I made so vital, valuable, and real about having a happy child that keeps me in a constant state of judgment of me? Everything that is times a godzillion. Right and wrong, good and
Right
bad,
and wrong,
pardon,
good, bad,
popcorn,
fun,
nice
popcorn,
shorts,
line,
boys and
shorts,
girls.
boys and beyond. I remember you actually a few years ago, like mentioning this.
Well, it came up because
that's
it's like,
brilliant.
yeah, because it does. As soon as we've decided that we need to have happy children, or even happy anything, because it comes with such judgment to it. Like if you go, I need to have a happy relationship, it's like, how much do you have to judge yourself in order to create happiness based on somebody else's point of view? Rather than, you know what, I just desire to choose in every moment. And it's like, and one of the things we do is we do this with our kids is we go, well, I want you to be happy. And then we not only create the unkindness for us based on the judgment, we create the unkindness towards them based on our projection that they should be happy.
Yeah. Which
so
is just a rightness.
Yeah. Yep.
Any projection is a rightness.
Yep.
Wow. I think parenting is like such a minefield, because we have the parents before us and all the points of views and stuff that we formed around our parents and what we will be as a parent, what we'll never be as a parent. And then we have our kids and their sort of projections, and then like the peers, sort of, other parents, societal norms about their projections. I think anyone who's watching this, if you think like parenting is supposed to be easy or anything like that, like that's one of those myths that Brendon was talking about.
So how many myths do you have that parenting should be easy? And if it's not, then you're wrong at it.
Yes,
everything
exactly.
That is times a godzillion. We just trying to create it.
All right and wrong, good and bad, pardon, puck, all nine shorts, boys and beyond.
Having a child, or like a lot of people, multiple children, you've taken on the toughest job on the planet.
And then somebody else's kids, like if you then marry somebody else or you have stepchildren or all this sort of stuff, that's like a whole other bag.
Yeah. Well, interesting though, like talking about this stuff with the myth, because it's like the energy that it brings up. I mean, for me, what I did was when I was 19, I met my son's mother. She had 2 kids.
Oh, wow.
She had 2 kids. As a 19-year-old, I went straight into fatherhood. And I was like, and I look back at it now and I look at, that was the myth, was to have, if you had a happy family, you'd be happy.
Wow.
It didn't work at all. But it's like, we do this. We've got like, if we were actually honest with ourselves and looked at it and went, okay, so where's all the myths that I'm using to create the life I am choosing? It's like, I'm finding things now still going, wow, that's a myth. Wow, that's a myth. Wow, that's a myth.
And that, what you just said then, like, what are all the myths that I'm using? Like, you don't actually have to cognitively know them either. Like, what I found, I sometimes still do it now, but I did it a lot previous, is like I was looking for the answer when asking a question like that. And it's not about cognitively, because I'm a head tripper. I try to think everything out and like try and figure it out, before I choose something, which is, I've learned with Access, thank goodness, that's a complete insanity and is just like another myth. So
it is another myth. It's actually one of the biggest ones, is that if we can think our way out of it, we can change it.
Yeah, exactly. Because what we can think about is such a small element of like what's possible and what's available and what we're capable of.
Yeah.
So basically, like with that, you don't have to know cognitively what the myth is. You can literally just like perceive the energy of it and destroy and uncreate it. That's just for all the other fellow head trippers out there that think they have to know. They can just know you can perceive the energy and destroy and uncreate it, and that works. Trust me, it works.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I'm grateful for you. Like, I'm grateful for your vulnerability with that too, though, because it's like one of the things I'm grateful for with this parenting series that we've been doing on here is it really isn't about getting parenting right, because good fucking luck, you're never going to get that shit right. it's about looking at what is and looking and being real with yourself and going, you know
Yeah.
what? I like thinking about shit. I learned as a kid that if I could think my way out of it, then I could change it.
Hmm.
But it never worked.
Hmm. Even if you've done it for years and years, like what I found, and this is pretty funny, I think, what I found is like I was holding on to it because I did it for so long. I invested so much energy that I didn't want to give it up. Like,
Yeah.
surely this must work out someday. I put so much energy into this, it must work out someday.
Yep.
But no.
Well,
Like,
I remember we were doing I think it was a 7-day, it might have been a CF training in Costa Rica. And Gary was, he was asking this woman in class, okay, so how much would you be willing to sell all of your limitations for?
yeah,
And
totally.
and she went, $1 million. And he said, why wouldn't you just give them away for free? And she went, I've put a lot of work into these. I want to be paid for them. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that is brilliant, because that's what we do. We will hold on and hold on and hold on to our limitations, thinking that we've earned them, therefore we should keep them.
Cute, not bright.
Crazy. Yeah. Crazy.
So, yeah. What else have you found different as a father? I would say, like a humanoid father, basically, being aware of so much.
Well, one of the things that I did with, because like you said, you said the thing with it being a minefield, and for me, the way that I taught myself different things with parenting was to go at it, and I'd make choices, and the amount of times that I apologized to my son for being an asshole, because it's like I would do something and then I would go, that wasn't kind, or that didn't
Yeah.
show up the way that I thought it was going to, and I just apologize. But what I did was I looked at with him, and as he as he grew older, I looked at it and went, okay, so if I was him right now, how would I speak to myself? And that was one of the things that I always used with him, because it would be like he'd be having a hard time, and rather than coming at it from the right parent point of view, I came
Yeah.
at it from, okay, so if I was him right now, what would I want to hear? And I started talking to him from that place, and it's like it just it created this space for him where he didn't have to shut himself down. And it's like, but like I said, I just learned over the years and went, oh, that didn't work, or that did work, or that was cool, or that wasn't cool. But it's like, but if we didn't have to get parenting right, then how much freedom could we have with it? Like,
Totally.
one of the things I'm interested with this parenting series is, it's like, is where we can parent our kids from a place that just allows them to be them. I mean, with what's going on in the world right now, it's like, for a kid to know that he has him or she has her, and she doesn't have to give that up for anyone. What a
Hmm.
gift.
Hmm. Totally. I really love what you said beforehand, how you basically, and this is paraphrasing, but how you look at what his point of view is in the situation.
Yeah.
Because you weren't like, what's the right thing to say as a father? Like, what does he need to hear? You're like, what does he need to hear?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
him to have
Yep.
something greater. That's such a different point of view.
Well, and it's also be willing to call yourself on your shit. I
Yeah.
mean, I remember this day when, I was really athletic as a kid and grew up surfing and doing all, just every sport. And Nash
Mhm.
wasn't like that. And I remember this day when I was like, it was just, I had such a judgment in my world that he should have been out there doing sports and stuff like that too. And I remember catching myself on it and went, oh, I'm a judgmental asshole. What gives me the right to judge him? And it was such a gift for me, because I went, okay, I need to be more honest with me with this. Like, if I'm doing judgment, what kind of a parent am I trying to be? And it's like, if we're willing to be honest with ourselves, it's not about making yourself wrong for it. It's about looking at it and going, okay, am I trying to be superior here?
Yeah. Yeah. And what's that going to create?
Yeah.
Because I, for so long, thought that getting it right, being superior because you're helping somebody else, was like actually creating something greater. And that's a massive myth of, what so many people believe.
Yeah.
If you just help somebody and do this because you're coming from that superior point of view.
Mm-hmm.
I can see you brewing up a clearing. I think that would be.
Well, no, I'm just because every time that the word myth comes up, I'm like, I didn't quite look at it from this, like, basically we've been taught that parenting is a myth. So how many myths of parenting are you using to, what did we do before? How many myths? Oh. How many myths of parenting are you using to create the constant state of judgment of you are you choosing? Everything that is, time to Godzilla, we destroy and create it.
Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. Because judgment of you is like one of the most valuable elements in the world.
Well, I think
Kidding.
it's the myth of, if you judge, you will change.
Yeah. And you'll eventually get it right.
Yeah. Yep.
Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds.
Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all nine shorts, boys and beyonds. Maybe we should just say that. We should just say that for half an hour.
Yeah.
Wow. It's
about the thing that I said beforehand too, about how parenting is a minefield.
Mm-hmm.
I also don't want people to walk away as the negative sense of that, because what it actually is, like, how capable we are, how aware we actually are. Like, it can feel like or seem like a minefield, like when we step into all of that awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And like, we're actually so capable of dealing with it if we're willing to be, like the things that we've been talking about. If you're willing to be vulnerable, if you're willing to have allowance, if you're willing to put your barriers down and actually listen to somebody else, like your children and so forth, and not pretend that you have to have it right. Like, all these things are what diffuse this minefield and make it actually like a field of sunflowers of possibilities.
Yeah. Well, allowance is the key to that, because it only becomes a minefield if you've decided that it is a minefield. If you had allowance for yourself, parenting would be easy.
Yeah.
And that, because you could look at that too, though, and go, yeah, but I still got to take my kids to school. But it's not easy from a place of you don't have to do anything. It's ease from a place of you get to have ease with everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I mean, mantra of access, all of life comes to me with ease, joy, and glory, even parenting.
Yeah. Yeah. And that difference between easy and ease, I think, is pretty substantial, because this reality says easy is a better point of view, which means you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
But the point of view of ease is you can be aware of everything and choose anything. That's ease.
Yep.
To recognize you always have a different choice no matter what shows up is, I think, one of the most amazing things, if we're willing to have it.
Definitely. And that's that place of recognizing that you can change anything if you're willing to make a different choice. It's like anything that's going on with your kids right now is, it's look at it and go, okay, so is there a different choice that I could make here that would change this?
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that I'm getting more and more to, is like, choice creates. I know we say this, like, Gary says this all the time, but you get it when you get it. And then you keep getting it and you keep getting it. But the thing of like how choice creates, literally making a different choice can change everything. And you might not notice it at the time because it doesn't feel like anything.
Yeah.
But a month later or 6 months later, you might look back and go, wow, literally that choice that I made then, and then you see the difference, and then you see the changes. You might see the changes in your kids, or your own life, or with money, or however it shows up. But that ease, it's not like, oh, now everything's easy. It's like the ease starts to permeate your life.
Yep.
And it's it's so beautiful because you don't have to like work hard or try hard. You literally just have to choose.
Yeah. And I like that. It is so beautiful. And it's like, I mean, consciousness is an interesting journey, and it's like, I mean, I remember for me, like, I was always looking for something different, always. And it's like, and I just couldn't find it until I found Access. And I was like, I remember coming to my first level 2 and 3 class, and Gary said, everything that's showing up in your life today, right now, is based on every choice you've ever made. And I went, what? You mean I've chosen this pile of shit called my life? And when I realized that, I recognized that I could make different choices. And that was so freeing for me, because what I'd done my whole life was played the victim. But if we teach our kids this, that, okay, so if we actually could teach our kids that choice creates, what kind of freedom does that give them in the world? Well, they can go, you know what would I like to choose today? What would I like to be today? What can I change if I'm willing to choose something different?
Cool. Yeah.
I mean, that would have been fun to have as a kid.
Yes, totally. I'd love to ask you another question, Brendon. When you were, because I know your story and like when you first came to Access, and I mean, I think Nash was like 2 years old or something like that, but when you were like living at your mum's place, because you basically wanted to end your life.
He was 4.
Because you were struggling, but you were like living at your parents' house, your mum's house, in a single room with your son. Like for anybody out there that feels hopeless or is in that situation, parenting, like what tool would you recommend them to just try?
I mean, one of the biggest gifts for me at that time, it's like, because I just got out of a relationship with my son's mother. I was sharing a tiny bedroom at my mother's house with Nash, with my son. He was 4 at the time. And it's like, and I made a demand of myself that no matter what it takes, I'm going to change my life. And one of the first tools I got was, who does it belong to? Because I just assumed everything in my life that I decided was wrong with me was mine. And when I got that was the tool I started using first. But also, for people listening, where you're just like, I'm struggling right now, is look at it and go, okay, so what choice could I make today that would allow me to start changing this? And for a lot of us, we do it from the place of, okay, what's wrong with me? Once I can figure out what's wrong with me, then I can change it. What if we were to say, there's nothing wrong with you?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with you. And what a lot of us do is we go, okay, so let me solve the problem before I can have possibilities. No, the problems are inventions that we create in order to stop us. The possibilities are what's actually true for us. But possibilities only come from choice. And choice only comes from question.
Yeah.
So we have to get to a place where ask and you shall receive. When you actually, like, when I started getting that, and I went, what, I can just ask for something and I can create it like that. I can ask and then I can choose. And the way things started showing up in my life was just magical. And I was like, wow, it can be this easy to create. But I think that's the place that we have to get to is it's like, you have to be willing to, you got to be willing to start with a question. You got to be willing to ask, okay, what would I like my life to be like today? Who am I today, and what grand and glorious adventures can I have? Not who was I yesterday and what problems do I have to make up for? Different reality that we have available if we choose it. And I'd also say it's like, I would say reach out, every time that you feel yourself compressing, ask, what would it take for me to expand right now? What would it take for me to expand right now? What would it take for me to expand right now? So that you actually start getting a sense of what's true for you, not what you've decided is wrong with you, which is why we compress into it. I would say that. And also it's like, we have so much stuff in access. There's so much free stuff online. It's just, we just want to contribute. So reach out and find something that's true for you. And the other thing I'm going to say with this is, you've got to use the tools.
Yeah.
If they're going to work, you got to use the tools. I missed that question. Oh, thank you.
So what tools, questions would you suggest for a single mum homeschooling a 6-year-old during COVID? How do I still create my life and work with ease during this time?
I would say, okay, so would it be easier if you had some help? I mean, I was talking with a friend of mine, and it was like, we were looking at how it would be easier for her to be homeschooling. And we were looking at it going, okay, so what if we didn't look at it from what they're saying you have to do, but what if you could add something to this and make it easier? And it's like, and that's that thing of starting with the question, so that you can start opening the doors to possibilities and go, okay, so what would work for my child and what would work for me with this? Do I need to get some help? I mean, one of the things that when I was talking with this person is, it's like, she's got a son who is hyperactive beyond belief. So I was like, okay, so is there anything, could he sit on something different? Like, it could be anything. It could be, is there a room that would work better? It's like, you don't know until you start asking the question of, okay, so what else would be possible for this to make it work for us? I would say start with that, and be in the question with it, and recognize that you're trying to homeschool a 6-year-old humanoid. Look at it and go, okay, so what's going to make it easy for them too? Because you got these kids who just want to bounce off the walls, and we're trying to keep them in front of a computer screen all day. You got to look at it and go, okay, so what would create this to be more ease?
Yeah, I would say kids require a lot of movement, not just physically, but also like energetically. And so even if you had like 4 or 5 different places where they do their schoolwork and stuff, and they can choose where they go and create that different sort of scene. And I wonder how you could include them in your life as well, like the stuff that you're doing, but including them in a way that they start to learn. The thing that I find strange about school is that it's so much stuff that is not really relevant to creating your life. So what if you asked her questions about like what she would like to create, or literally to get her point of view about things, like what's she interested in, what would she like to learn? And then you could even tailor it into something that you found valuable, something that you wish you'd learnt when you left home, and that would then she could use for the rest of her life.
And the other thing I want to say is, be willing to get it wrong. Be willing to get homeschooling wrong. Okay, so everything that doesn't allow all of you to get homeschooling wrong, or schooling wrong, or you just
raising your kids,
or raising your kids wrong, or you just trying to create it.
Right and wrong, good and bad, pod and pock, all night shorts, boys and beyonds.
It's
20 years later, whoops.
But it's such a freeing thing. I mean, I remember with Nash, when I'd say, you know what, I'm sorry, I'm the worst father on the planet. And he'd go, no, you're not, Dad. But it was like, but I asked for that because I knew that if I was willing to get it wrong, then I could see what was true. And it's the same with the homeschooling. It's like, if you have a bad day and it didn't work out, try something different tomorrow. Okay, what awareness did I get from that choice today, and what could I choose tomorrow?
Totally. Yeah. Awesome.
Cool.
Very awesome.
All right. Well, I don't know what else to talk about.
It feels like these last 40 minutes, there's been a lot.
Okay, good.
There's a lot in there.
Good.
And all of these sessions are like fantastic and so different. And
they are different.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for you, my friend, for coming on here.
Thank you.
It's the thing that I've loved is it's because it's the same thing with our kids. We're all different, so getting the different energy of all of us with parenting it's been a gift to me to see what that can contribute to people too. But but if we had that with our kids also, and we didn't try and treat them just like kids or try and treat any of them the same, then could we see who they actually be, and could we contribute more to that?
Totally. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you so much for inviting me on this. This has been such a really fun conversation, actually. And
I know I get to see you in 2 days. Amazing.
In Istanbul. So stoked.
Yeah, I got to finish packing.
I got to start packing.
I'm hopeless. I'm just talk about a humanoid trying to prove to himself how powerful he is when you leave packing until the last moment.
The 11th hour.
Yeah. I tell you, I'm not the brightest crayon in the box, but anyway, we won't hold that against me.
Definitely.
All right, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you
soon. Yep.